and talking to some of you, I know these presentations have been tremendously helpful to you and to others that you're sharing them with. Just want to begin by giving you a reminder just to switch your mobile phones off or put them in silent, please, as Dr. Ramirez presents and as we do recording. We have a couple of new people here tonight. Bathrooms are right through the back there, just to the left as you go out of this church building. And there's a pathway that goes to the bathrooms if you need it. There's also a water bubble on the right-hand side there. And a reminder that we will have some refreshments, some food, snacks, and some drinks again between the presentations. So immediately after this presentation, the first presentation, Dr. Ramirez will be sharing with us tonight. Can I invite you just to bow your heads with me for a word of prayer as we start? Okay. Our loving Father, thank you again for our time here together, Father. Thank you for the tremendous knowledge that you are sharing with us here, Father. And Lord, we thank you that we have people, Lord, in the Seventh-day Adventist community like Dr. Ramirez that are at the forefront of lifestyle medicine, working to help prevent illness, prevent disease, Father, before it takes us unawares, and showing us the path of restoration as well. So please be with him tonight again, Lord. Please bless him as he speaks, and we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay, we're going to connect this, and we're going to change the color. Just one little second. Okay, that's good. Now let me change the color. Right there. Good. Okay. Let's go ahead and send this right here. Very good. And we'll start this. Okay. This and this and this. Perfect. Okay, very good. Well, today we had a chance to go and see a little bit the coast, and even had an opportunity to go to the ocean. That was very nice. You may think that it's cold. It's actually not that cold. If you haven't been recently, go and check it out. It's actually quite nice. In my book, Pandemic Busters, what we're going to be talking about today, I actually deal with that on chapter 22. And that's where you're going to find those 10 hits that we're going to be talking about, as well as in the published paper that I published that you can find on the ResearchGate page. I'm also going to be citing quite a bit my Twitter account, so you can find a lot of the information that we're going to be talking about today in my ResearchGate. So we know that we have much more depression today. In a review article, they were checking what's the situation with depression worldwide, and it was found out that you're more likely to be cured from cancer than depression. That is what's happening today with depression. Is becoming a chronic problem. Before it used to be like more of a short term, now it's becoming longer and longer. And in the study, they say that only 28% of the people that are taking medication actually feel that they have healed. I mean, the numbers were quite small, 28 if you consider So there must be something else you can do. Well, that's exactly what we are going to be learning tonight. So let me start the presentation with the story of Christy. She gave us permission to share her story. Christy, she grew up in a good home, but she started hanging around the wrong type of friends. And very soon, she started to get involved in addictions and so forth, and her life started spiraling out of control. And their parents knew about our depression program, so they tricked her. They told her, we're going to take you to a place that is like a spa so you can get massage and so forth. Which we do massage, but that's actually not, what we do a spa, So what she did, she tried to escape, from the program. We caught her. She tried to escape a second time. We got her. A third time, we got her. A fourth time, and we caught her. So we said, you know what? We need to do something about this because Christy is going to end up, escaping and causing problems and so forth. So we had a staff meeting, and we decided that somebody was going to sleep outside the door of the room of Christy. So in case she tried to escape there in the middle of the night, she was going to stumble there, in the staff member, and she was going to be able to be stopped and so forth. So Christy, something happened to her, and she got touched and understood that what we wanted to do with her, we wanted to actually help her. And she started finally cooperating with the program instead of trying to go against the program. And lo and behold, by the time that she finished, she was feeling fantastically great. We're going to be learning, what she was doing to improve her mental health. And in fact, she wanted to stay even longer, a few, more days, as she was feeling, that finally she was able to overcome this problem of depression. Did you know that Christy today is completely depression-free? Christy is happily married. She just finished an advanced degree in nursing, and in fact, she uses her free time to actually tell others about the good news, how you can also overcome depression. In fact, if you want to hear her story, you can find it on this 3ABN radio on their this free station SoundCloud. So just Google by the word of her testimony, Christy Christopher, and you can hear her story in her own words. So you can see here in this study, in one of our studies, what happens when you deal with depression, and you deal with depression at the root cause of the problem. See, this is what happens in the before and after with depression and anxiety in a matter of 10 days. That is how fast the change happens to occur. So you can see at the beginning, patients come with a moderate high type of depression, and in a matter of 10 days, that depression has gone down to minimum. In that scale, minimum actually means no depression. Okay? Is that good or bad? Fantastic. You have to see it to believe it. And this is as a group that we're taking this statistic, more than 1,000 people. And here you can see What happens with anxiety, the same story, goes from moderate on average to no anxiety. So how do we diagnose depression? Well, there's a standardized test that you can do. It's called the DSM-5, the book, where all the descriptions of all the mental health problems are codified. And if you actually want to take the test for free about this, just go and search for something called PHQ-9. Just put that on your Google, and you will find a little online. There's many sites that have the test, PHQ-9, and depression. And you'll get 9 questions, and it will tell you, if you have depression and how severe the depression is. So let's go briefly through each one of those 9 factors that trigger a depression. Number 1, we have deep sadness. You'll qualify for deep sadness if, especially in ladies, spontaneously crying. The patient comes to me and says, "Doctor, I don't even know why I'm crying. I shouldn't be crying. This small little thing made me cry. What's wrong with me?" No. Now, on males, it's different. On males, what the patient tells me is, "Doctor, I know something is wrong in me, but I cannot tell you what it is. I feel something inside of me is not right." That's how males would describe mostly this symptom of deep sadness. Second symptom, apathy. Patient wakes up in the morning, and the patient is not looking forward to the day that is about to start. And there's some patients that tell me, "Doctor, my problem is that I'm getting older." And old people feel like that. I said, no, that is not how old people feel. And 2, that is not a normal symptom. Something is not right. You should be able to look forward to the blessings and headaches that you're going to be facing throughout the day. Third one, sleep disturbances. You probably know it. Classic symptom, patient wakes up around 2 or 3 a.m. And what happens? They cannot go back to sleep, isn't it? And the reason why that is happening is because, as we're talking about earlier, about the chemistry of the brain, there is a chemical by the name of serotonin. Serotonin is what makes us feel good throughout the day. People with depression have low levels of serotonin. So, if there is low levels of serotonin, the serotonin is what will be converted into melatonin and gives you a good night's sleep. So if there is less serotonin, there's going to be less serotonin, there's going to be less melatonin. So, in fact, the time that they're waking up, the earlier they wake up is related to how severe the depression is. As the person starts to improve their mental health, as the serotonin starts to be increased, then the time that you're waking up starts shifting and shifting and shifting. And we see that with our patients in those 10 days that I was mentioning, the improvement is dramatical. Now, this is one side of the coin in which the patient is not sleeping enough or has problems sleeping. The other side of the coin is what we call hypersomnia. Patient is sleeping too much. In fact, we have this type of patients that come to us, patients that sleep 14, 16 hours a night. Imagine sleeping 16 hours a night. I mean, that's just barely enough time to, get up, take a shower, eat something, take care of a few things, and your day is done. You need to go back to sleep. So both are symptoms of depression. If you have 5 or more, by the way, that's what we define depression. Next one, changes in the appetite and or the weight. And the patient may not know about biochemistry, the patient may not know about nutrition, but they do know something. When they eat certain foods, those foods somehow makes them feel better. Which foods? Chocolate, caffeine, sugar, white flour. These types of food temporarily, this is a problem, makes you feel better. But because these type of foods, what they do, they increase the blood flow to the amount of glucose in the brain. That's what makes you feel better. But then the body detects there's too much glucose here. The body kicks in the insulin, knocks down that glucose, and then you're hungry again. And what do? Eat a second dose. And that's the way you go throughout the day. First the cookies, and then the crisp, and then the cake, and then the donut. And those calories end up accumulating, and the person end up gaining weight secondary to that. Or the opposite side of the coin, in which the patient is not hungry. So they call the person to come to eat dinner. The person just takes 1 or 2 bites, and then they say, no, I'm not hungry, I'm not going to eat. And this makes sense why they're going to have depression. Because if they are not eating the right foods, well, their brain needs food to convert that into that serotonin. So this type of patients, not even the medication for depression works on them. So that's why, as part of the therapy, we have to nurture the brain so that the brain can function properly. Next one, lack of concentration. This has to do with the fact that the brain is dependent on that serotonin not being present has an effect at the level of the frontal lobe, and the ability to focus and put your attention is impaired. Even simple decisions is quite the task for these people that are depressed. Next one, feelings of worthlessness. The patient feels that they are not important. The patient feels that they don't have any value, and so forth. Again, this is a symptom secondary to that low serotonin in the brain. Then morbid thoughts. Morbid thoughts means the patient is obsessed about thinking about disease. The patient is obsessed about thinking about disease, and the patient is obsessed about trying to harm themselves or trying to harm others. In fact, all those news stories that you hear, that some crazy guy went, started shooting all kinds of people, morbid thoughts, classic morbid thoughts. And you see reflected in our society how much morbid thoughts are around. For example, start observing some of the tattoos the young people are putting on, some of the things they put in their shirts, and so forth, you're going to find all these skulls and bones and this type of things. See, that's morbid thoughts. That is not something normal. And finally, the last symptom, the symptom of fatigue. And the patient tells me, doctor, I have this tiredness in me that it just doesn't go away. It doesn't matter what I do. It just doesn't go away. What's wrong with me? And as we start asking the questions, sure enough, the different symptoms there of depression that come about, 5 or more are present, and that's the cause of that fatigue. Now, if there are only 2 to 4 symptoms, that's what we call a minor depression. Everything is not well, but everything is not completely bad. So somehow there, the patient is able to operate halfways. And what we do know is that depression is increasing. Since 1915, when depression started being accounted, it was found out that as we repeat the counting, every year we find more and more depression. And the average age is decreasing, now is 25. And depression can affect all kinds of things, from your hormones to your immune system, to your bone health, to your addictions, to your control of your emotions, to your decline as in your physical health. And these things happen to occur because the mind is connected throughout the whole body. So what affects the mind will affect the whole body. And a statistic tells us that females, 1 in 4 females will suffer from depression at some point in their life. Among males, it is 1 in 8. Why do females have more depression than males? A few factors, but one of the most important ones is that change of life that takes place throughout menopause and so forth. That change of hormones has a big impact. Now, what about suicide? Well, there's an interesting study that was done in San Francisco. This beautiful big bridge called the Golden Gate. Anybody here has seen that bridge? I used to live actually quite close to it. And you see all the time people working on this bridge. This bridge is so big that when they're painting the bridge, by the time they finish, the painting is too old at the beginning. So they are constantly working on this bridge. And this is a place that people come to commit suicide because they can stop there in the middle and they jump there and it's a long ways down there. Now, believe it or not, there are people that have survived the jump. So what a smart psychologist did, he went to find those survivors because his interest was, what do the people that survive depression, what are the people that are trying to commit depression, what are they thinking? Because, usually we don't know. They commit the suicide and then you don't know what was in their head as they were committing suicide. So he went and started interviewing them. First question he asked them, did you want to commit suicide? Do you want to commit suicide? What was the answer? Yes, I wanted to commit suicide. Second question, are you glad you didn't finish your suicidal attempt? What's the answer? Yes, I am very happy I didn't complete my suicide. I said, wait a minute. First, you're telling me that you wanted to commit suicide. Now you're telling me that you're happy you didn't finish your suicidal attempt. When did you change your opinion? That's a good question, isn't it? When did you change your mind? You know what's the answer? As soon as my feet left solid ground, I realized I was committing the worst mistake in my life. So one of the issues with suicide attempts is that they are triggered by that deep type of depression, and that type of depression increases impulsivity. So many times, the person does things out of the impulse and so forth, and then later on they regret, they say things, they go to the mall and start buying all kinds of things, and not until the day the receipt comes, they're like, why did I buy all these things, I didn't actually need all those things. So what can we do for depression? Well, this is our study. Again, you can find that study on that ResearchGate page that I was telling you. So in this study, what we are proposing is that depression has causes. In the way we wrote this article, we searched the scientific literature, and we found that there are more than 100 different causes for depression. So in order to classify things better, what we did, we grouped those 100+ causes into 10 groups. And it is our central idea that if you have 4 or more of those 10 hits, that's when you are going to have depression. Now, this is the heart of our program. If you can understand this concept, then you can help somebody with depression. So let's go quickly through each one of those 10 factors. Factor number 1, the genetic factor. You will qualify for the genetic factor if you have a family that has had depression, if you had a close family that have attempted suicide and so forth. There could be running, that genetic factor there among the family members. So this one is one that is, passed genetically, but it's not the only one. Factor number 2, developmental. We'll be dealing with this one a little bit more on the second part of the presentation, but basically it will qualify for developmental many things. 1, if you suffer from any type of abuse when you were small. 2, if you, when you were growing up, you had needs that were not met. You didn't have enough food and so forth. 3, you will qualify for developmental if you didn't grow up with both biological parents. 4, it will qualify for this if you grew up in a household where drugs or alcohol was abused. 5, it will qualify for this if you are a female and your first menstrual period was before the age of 11. Okay? Any of these factors will qualify for this developmental hit. Now, here is the bad news, good news. Bad news is that you cannot do much about these 2 factors. These things happen in the past. These things are in your genes. The good news is, what did we say? How many factors you need to have depression? 4 or more. Therefore, you can have these two factors. That doesn't mean you're destined to be depressed for the rest of your life. So next one, lifestyle. It will qualify for this lifestyle factor if you don't have a regular exercise program. 2, if you're not exposing to bright light early in the day, every day. Or 3, you spend too much time inside of buildings and you are not breathing fresh air on a regular basis. Question, can you change these factors? Absolutely. These factors are completely changeable with habits. Next one, circadian rhythm. Basically means that you don't have order in your life. There's a disaster going on in your life. You don't have regular times of eating and stopping to eat. You don't have regular times to going to bed and waking up. This disorder, it's not good for you. In fact, in the weekend is where most people fail with this one. They usually, because of work, very regular, throughout the week. But then comes the weekend, and what happens? There you are, going to bed at 1 in the morning or something crazy, and then staying in bed until 10 in the morning and so forth. No wonder why Monday comes and you feel horrible. Secondary to the fact that you violated your internal rhythms during the weekend. So what do we learn? We need to have a similar program in the weekend to the program that we have throughout the week. Next one, addictions. It will qualify for addictions, any of the following factors: usage of alcohol, usage of any product with nicotine, usage of benzodiazepines, these medications for anxiety and so forth, like Xanax, usage of opioids, these very strong pain medications. It will qualify for addictions if you're using any illegal drugs, including marijuana. It will qualify for this if you are using pornography. It will qualify for this if you are using any form of caffeine. So any of these factors will qualify for this addictions hit. Question, can you overcome addictions? Is that possible? Absolutely. It is possible to overcome addictions. Next one, nutrition factor. It will qualify for nutrition factor if you are eating too much junk food on a regular basis. You're eating too much refined foods on a regular basis. You're eating too much animal products on a regular basis. It will qualify for this if you're not eating certain key nutrients for your mind. What key nutrients? Well, we mentioned a few last time. Remember, we mentioned the tryptophan, so you need to eat enough tryptophan. You need to eat enough omega-3, ideally from plant sources, and we'll come back to that why in a moment. We need to be eating enough vitamin B6, enough calcium, enough iron, enough B-complex, enough folate, and so forth. So if you are not eating the right nutrition, your brain cannot make the right chemistry. Isn't that logical? And to me, it's funny that many patients say to me, "Doctor, for my problem with depression, you're the first one that is asking me, what do I eat on a regular basis?" I'm surprised. I'm surprised I haven't asked them before, because you need to understand how are they nurturing the brain in order to help, overcome that depression. Question, can you change your way of eating? Yes or no? Yes. Absolutely. It's possible to change the way you eat. Next one, toxic hit. It will qualify for the toxic hit if the person is being exposed to toxins that could potentially have a negative effect. We'll come back to that a little bit more, but especially concerning things like lead, things like cadmium. People that work in factories are exposed to cadmium, and things like mercury. And the mercury one is actually the most common one. We'll be dealing with that in a minute. And then after the toxic hit, we have 3 factors in one. Number one, you don't have a good social support network. You don't belong to a social group that meets on a regular basis. You don't belong to a church or something that meets with regularity, so you can get that social support. That will qualify for that. 2, you are under an extreme type of stress condition, and this stressful situation it's actually impairing, many factors in your life that will qualify for that. And or grief. You have lost something very dear and important for you, from a loved one to an object to a part of your body, and you have not been able to overcome that loss. So, question, can you do something about this factor number 8? Yes or no? Yes, you can do changes, You can start belonging to some, group on a regular basis. You can, solve or bring some solution to that stressful situation. You can overcome that grief. And then factor number 9 is the exception of the rule. We said how many factors you need? 4 or more. But medical condition by itself can trigger depression and or anxiety. Qualify for that. You have diabetes that is not well under control, qualify for that. If you have any form of cancer, the secondary to that will give you a depression, that will qualify for that. If you have hormone problems and you are not, taking care of the problem, that will qualify for that. You will qualify for the medical condition also if you're exposed to certain viral infections like hepatitis C. That virus gives you depression. You will qualify for that if you are somebody with an autoimmune condition and the problem is not being taken care of. That will qualify for that. You will qualify for the medical condition also if you are having problems with your liver, with your kidneys, and you're not dealing with that. So what do we need to fix that medical condition? A competent medical professional, so that they can deal, with the root causes and bring about, some stability to these conditions, or help you overcome, if it's possible, to reverse the condition. And finally, the frontal lobe of the brain. We will qualify for the frontal lobe of the brain 2 things. 1, you're doing things that impair the function of the frontal lobe. Or 2, you're not doing enough things to stimulate your frontal lobe. So you will qualify for that frontal lobe if you're listening to the wrong type of music. What's the wrong type of music? Music which first ingredient is percussion. Think about something like rap, for example. That's the number one thing in the music, and then whatever else is separate, and so forth. you are doing things that go against your conscience on a regular basis, that will qualify for frontal lobe. You are involved in a wrong sexual behavior, that will qualify for that, frontal lobe. Or you're not stimulating enough your frontal lobe through abstract thinking. So the research is very clear. Notice this interesting study. Do you see on the right side those big, bright red dots? Those are activity of the brain, specifically the frontal lobes of the brain. So, if you are doing things that are decreasing the activity and blood flow to the brain, that is what actually triggers a lot of the depression cases. So let's go briefly through some of the things we do for patients with depression. Notice this one. You can find this on my Twitter, by the way. I just put it there just a few days ago. Look at this study. This is JAMA, one of the top journals in the world. One session of hydrotherapy improves depression. And that's what we do with our patients. In our patients, every patient does hot and cold. 3 to 5 minutes on hot water, 30 seconds to 1 minute in the cold water. That change improves the blood flow to the brain and makes the patient feel better. We do this treatment 2 times a day on every single one of our patients. Another thing that can impair things is blue light in the night, okay? Blue light in the night impairs your ability to have a good night's sleep. And if you're not sleeping enough, you are increasing your risk for depression. So what can you do? Well, number one, ideally you shouldn't be using any electronics. But if you have to use those electronics, put a blue light filter. If you don't have that ability, don't use the electronic. Now, this other one, we help the patients overcome their addictions. In this study, this is one of my studies, we were documenting how nicotine has a very negative effect on your mental health. Now, nicotine is quite an addictive substance. So it is possible to overcome, and today less and less people are smoking, but what are they doing instead? They are vaping. Look at this study. This is in my Twitter also. Vaping increases depression symptoms among people who has never smoked cigarettes. So the issue is that the nicotine, that nicotine has a very pernicious effect on your nervous system, and it causes frontal lobe suppression. That's why some people think that, vaping is okay. Smoking bad, but vaping is okay. No, it's not okay. The research shows that you can actually damage as equal or worse your lungs with the vaping than with the cigarettes. So this is something that you should avoid. And the more you use it, the worse it is for your mental health. Another thing that we do, we use music therapy. The healing power of music, says this tweet. So this music therapy, we use classical music therapy. And that's one of the advantages of participating from a church service like this one. All those hymns that you sing, they're actually many of them based on classical music. So you're getting, some classical music therapy every time you come to church. But you can do this also in your home, listen to those beautiful classical music, especially Baroque type of classical music is fantastic to the brain. Doctor, how do I find Baroque music? That's why they invented YouTube. You just put there classical music, Baroque, and you will find all kinds of music there in that YouTube that you can listen to. In fact, this is my study. In this study, we're documenting how people that listen to music, television videos like MTV and so forth have doubled the risk of smoking. And it is a hypothesis that has to do with the frontal lobe suppressing effect that this has. This other one, we're documenting how marijuana has a very negative effect on your mental health. And here you can see, this is a study from JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, how cannabis is linked to mental illness. Not only increases the risk of depression and anxiety, but also opens the door to schizophrenia and many other mental illnesses. This plant is not good for you. In fact, this is something that is used actually in some of the Hindu rituals up in India. Just Google it if you want to see some of this information. And this other one, I've been getting quite a bit of questions about this fish one, so let me explain to you this thing with a little bit more detail. So this is my study. In this study, we're documenting how people that eat fish on a regular basis actually have a higher risk of depression. It's interesting because you hear the opposite, isn't it? But our data shows completely the opposite. And there is our hypothesis that this has to do with the fact that, as I mentioned, that in this study, we cite another study that says that today every fish has mercury. So it's not only mercury, but there's multiple other toxins that unfortunately are in the flesh of fish today. If you're interested in the subject, there is this one. This is the one I was mentioning yesterday, how in the Faroe Islands, the children, their IQ started to decrease, and they found out in their conclusion that the reason why their IQ of the children was going down was due to their high seafood product intake. So here it is. This is PBS. It's a public television station in America, the one that made this documentary about it. And then the issue why this happens is something called biomagnification. This is the term in ecology. See, toxins accumulate exponentially. Look at it so you can understand the concept. For example, this is the water of the lake. This is a lake in America that is actually quite close to Weimar. And notice they were measuring something called the DDD, which is a cousin of the DDT. DDT is banned, but DDD they continue to use. So the water had 0.02 parts per million of DDD. These levels, they're going to tell you that's okay to drink this type of water. It's because it's very, very minuscule, the amounts. But notice, the microscopic organisms that were living in the water had 5 parts per million. Okay? Notice that the jump was not small. The jump was big because it's exponential the way that toxins accumulate in the environment. Now, the fish that fed on those microscopic organisms had between 40 to 300 parts per million. Can you see how these things are accumulating tremendously? And then the carnivorous fish that were eating the other fish had up to 2,500 parts per million. Now, they didn't document the next one, which was the humans that eat those carnivorous fish, But you can see where this is going. You start accumulating tremendous toxicity as you go up on the food chain. If you're interested in a good documentary, just Google these words on your YouTube. This is a documentary from Europe. Farm Norwegian salmon, world's most toxic food. And I can testify of that. I used to live in Norway. And these people are ruining those fjords. And the documentary, they explain to you with quite a bit of detail how that is occurring and happening. So many times, people think, oh, Norwegian, clean and so forth. Not necessarily. There's many, many challenges there. Notice this. This is the journal Nature, one of the top journals in the world. Notice the interesting study that they reported. How this ibis, you guys are experts here in Australia about ibis, I see them all over the place. When ibis were exposed to mercury, they started behaving in a homosexual fashion. Fascinating, isn't it? And if you go worldwide, you're going to notice that coastal towns where there is more consumption of fish and so forth, there is a relationship there between that type of behaviors and so forth. In fact, we know that San Francisco is loaded with mercury because mercury was used in the processing of the gold and so forth. There was a big rush there, in the old days about discovering gold and so forth. This is the study there, how there's so much mercury in San Francisco. Next one, alcohol. In this study, we were documenting how alcohol has a very negative effect on your mental health. This is a study that we actually presented here in Australia, in Perth, Australia. And this other one, how doing things that go against your conscience has a very negative effect on your mental health. Can you stop doing things that go against your conscience? Yes or no? Yes, it's possible to start changing, isn't it, our behaviors. This other one of my studies showing how not growing up with both biological parents actually has a negative effect on the mental health and even has an influence there on the sexual behavior. This other one, how growing up in a household where alcohol is abused increases risk of depression later on. This other one showing that there's hope. See, as I mentioned to you, benzodiazepines increase the risk for depression and anxiety. But in this study, what we documented is that people that were using these benzodiazepines, you can see the before and the after, how much benzodiazepines they were using. So the fact that you start making those positive lifestyle changes, that helps you overcome many of those potentially addictive things, such as benzodiazepines. And this other one, we're showing how in a matter of 10 days, we're able to help people decrease their risk for depression and help them to drop the benzodiazepines. And this other one, a very hopeful study that we did, showing that exercise decreases those morbid thoughts. That's why for a patient with depression, exercise is not optional. exercise is a must for them. And the younger they are, the more intense the exercise should be. They're actually literally sweating out of that exercise. That's the best type of exercise for depression. And this is very well documented. Association between physical activity and risk of depression. And the conclusion, even moderate amounts of exercise can help ward off depression. So that's why if you are dealing with mental health, you have to have a regular exercise program. And we know that exercise not only helps you with mental health, but it actually has all kinds of benefits in your body. And this other one, how those lifestyle changes in general, the sleep, the diet, and so forth, they are all have a synergetic effect, decreasing the risk of suicide. This other one showing that even people with autoimmune conditions, when they start dealing with those root causes of the depression, the mental health improves also. That's what we documented in this study. This other one, how sexual relationships or activity outside of the context of marriage actually has a very negative effect on the mental health. Actually got invited, not only came out in the journal Sexual Medicine, but this study I got invited to present it at the Sexual Meeting Conference. This other one on the negative effect of lead. Where do you expose yourself to lead? Certain spices may be contaminated with lead. You need to watch out to make sure it's a good source. Some old houses, the pipes have lead. If you live in a very old house, watch out. You may want to test, your water. Make sure that you don't have any lead in your water. This other one, how iron deficiency make your mental health symptoms worse. Remember I told you one of the factors for nutrition was that you needed to eat enough iron. This other one, patients with stroke. Many of them develop depression. And we're documenting in this study how even those patients, as they make lifestyle changes, their mental health can actually improve on them. And this is a study, I just put it literally a couple of days ago. If you go to my Twitter, you will find it. Here, a professor from Harvard University is proposing that the fact that people are attending less to church actually is making the depression worse. Remember that social factor that I was telling you? We need that social connection and so forth on a regular basis. And this other one showing how narcotics, benzodiazepines, and marijuana, all of them have a very negative effect on your mental health. So you can see, this is what we're doing. We are dealing with the root cause of the problem, going after those root causes, and making those changes in order to overcome depression. So we're going to have a 10-minute break, and we'll come back for the second part of the presentation.
If you have any questions, I'm going to ask you to hold it till the end of our second presentation, okay? So just remember for this presentation, and we'll have some questions after the second presentation. Right now, some lovely refreshments and some snacks. Stretch your legs, go to the bathroom, and we'll see you back here shortly. Thank you.